Hello guys, welcome back to another session of Software Engineering tutorial. Let me start this tutorial with a small tips and trick. So far you must have exhausted your license for webMethods, but there is a trick that you can follow to get a new license without again requesting a product. What you can do is that you can open the same email which you have received for license for the license, and you can just click on the same link for the license key, and you will receive the new licenses with the latest product version with the latest expiry date, that you can replace it with uh, inside the system. So for integration server you can replace the licenses to the config for this path pwd app w103 integration server instance default config, and you can replace this license under this file and restart the server. And for server you can go to universal messaging server default server server and license.xml, and you can replace from here. This way you will be able to uh, get the server system running up and running in no time with the latest expiry date. So it's been a while since we did our last session, and in this session I would like to start with the flow services. In the last session we talked about Java services, and we in the previous session we did created this service called Hello World, right? Now we all understand what service is. Now service is a unit which has an input signature and output signature. Input and output signature both represents through a pipeline. Now a flow service is a language which allow you to orchestrate using different flow services. Okay, so what does it mean? This means is that you can club multiple operations and do it in a programmatical way to achieve your task. And to do that, what flow service allows is to invoke other services. For example, we created as my first Java service last time, right? This is a service which you can uh, which is actually taking one number, two numbers, and giving me the results. Correct? Now suppose I wanted to use this service into uh, okay, just appending the number basically. So suppose I wanted to use this service in my another service. So what I can do is that I can basically drag and drop like this, as easy as this, right? Once I do that, I will have this view called pipeline. In this pipeline, I will be able to see this number 1 and number 2 as an input and results as an output. Okay, so let's start with this service again. I will just not save it. I'll create it another service called another flow service called my new service. Okay, in this service I will let's think about situation what we wanted to achieve it here. Let's say that we wanted to create a service which will have which will add the second number two times to the first number. So let's say number 1, number 2, and I would say this is the result. Very simple. Okay, so what I'm trying to achieve here is this, is that I will have number 1, then 2, then I will have number 1 as 1, number 2 is 2, so it should be 1 2 2. This should be answer. So if number 1 is 45, number 2 is 36, so answer should be 45 36 36. This is what I'm trying to achieve. Now to do that, what I can do is that I know that this service is which I created earlier as a Java service, can do first job which I'm trying to do. So as soon as I drag and drop, it has invoked. Now this is called simple invoke. You can do the same thing from this palette also. This palette says that what you can achieve it here is simple invoke. This is the invoke. When you do this invoke, it will ask for the service you want to invoke. You can browse and click the service and to invoke the service. So what I'm trying to do here, number 1 and number 2. Let me delete this one. And number 1 and number 2, and result should be the result. Okay. Anything I do not want after this in the pipeline, I can just click on it. I can go and click on this button that will drop the variable. Dropping variable is very necessary as a programming practice. This will clean up or basically remove those variables from your pipeline and keep your pipeline lightweight and simple. So let's say 45 and 36. What happens? 45, 36. But I wanted to do this 2 times. Okay. So if I wanted to do it 2 times, what I'll do, I'll just call with this service again. I will not drop the number 2 because I want this in the next step, and I will add this number 2 is a number 2 and result as number 1. Okay, number 2. See, if you see that this is a light gray means it's an automatic mapping. If a pipeline already has a number 2, it will automatically map to number 2 and results to result as it is. Overwriting, and now I do not want this number 2. So in a step-by-step way, I achieved my job like this. This is my result. I'm still getting number 1 as an output, so I have not cleaned up the number 1, that means, and that's what it is. I should clean this, and if I run this again, right click, run as FlowService, it has run. So you see, this is how you can invoke. Now invoking a service is very easy, as we understood. Now you must be thinking that in this case, every time you wanted to do something, you need to create your own Java service and then do it. Not necessary. For that, SoftwareJ provides a package called wpublic. Inside this wpublic, you have all sort of utilities you can use. So let's try something which we wanted to invoke. The very first service is maths. Very first package we want to go. So math has multiple services. Java, they are all Java services internally. That allows you to do a lot of job. So for example, absolute value. Let's see what does it do. Absolute value. It has only one number and gives me the positive number. It's very simple. I will just map it like this. Let's see what happens. Again, it is all numbers. It should give me 45. Right? If I do this again, correct? It is still giving me positive one. So basically it gives me the floating value. Now add integers. If I do add integer to, I think it should give me 38, right? See how it is giving me as a value. It's giving me as a value because I am not mapping it to results and I am not dropping the value variable. This is the reason. Okay. Run as FlowService. So in this way, you can see there are multiple services, they do multiple jobs. Now, where can I find a documentation for it? So for that, you can go to the tech community. Sign in. Go to the documentation. Go to the web methods. Documentation. Right. Then product suites. Go to the latest version, that is best. Then documentation by product. And here you can go to the integration server. And here you can download this built-in service reference. This is the document you should be looking at to refer what service do. So this has all the required all the services document which I already downloaded that I've already downloaded these documentations, so it's available here with me. So it will have built-in service reference like this. So in this one I have math folder. Sorry. And here we have this one absolute value. So it says returns the absolute value input, number whose positive value to be returned, absolute value of it. Similarly, for math min, that means return the smallest number from the list of the numbers. So let's try this. So suppose I have a list of numbers, and I wanted to get the minimum of this list. So I can call this one num list map. It's automatically mapped anyway, right? And this is the minimum value. So let's try. I'll drop the rest of the things and remove add int, run it, and this is how you can add multiple numbers. See, minimum is 1. So this way I would say that you should go ahead and do all the maths at least to see what does these all of them do. Then we can continue our session. So we have just worked upon the first way of invoking service. There is another way of invoking a service is using map. So this is your first flow step. So there are these many steps available. I would say you can just disregard this try, catch, try, finally, catch, finally, including this exit, sequence, repeat, loop, branch, and maps. These are the steps which are very necessary to understand, and they are basically allow you to invoke service using your own logic and orchestrate your service, right? So we just discussed the invoke method to invoke a service. There is another way to invoke a service is using a transformers. You can click on you can put a map step, and inside the transformers you can browse and call any service like this. In this way your num1, num2 will not be mapped automatically. Remember this. There is a difference between invoking a transformer and invoking a number service. So let's put an analogy in it. How does it how is it different? So the biggest difference is that when you are invoking as a service or simple invoke works as, I would say, as an interception. Means whatever your pipeline flow is going on, the service will go and attach in between. So it's like a chain. So let me show you something. Suppose again, I'm just trying to give you an idea that how does it work. So suppose this is your pipeline flow, and if you invoke a service, the service will come in between and you in front of your pipeline completely. So your pipeline has to go here and come out there, then it will come out from the pipeline, then another invoke will come and another invoke will be in between. This is how the whole simple invoke works. But the transformer invokes works this way. So in the transformer invoke, a dummy map step comes into the picture, right? And what does this map do is that it creates a copy of the pipeline and invokes separate service. Okay, gets the output, give it back, gets the output, give it back, gets the output, give it back. It do not guarantee the sequence, and it is not a parallel execution. Remember this. Fine. So In this way, in a single step, you can invoke multiple service first of all. So that means if I do this, I can invoke the same service multiple times like this. Okay. But there is a difference. One more difference is that every time a service is invoked, the copy of the pipeline is created and given to this service. Okay. And unless there is an output is mapped from the to the main pipeline, you this service is not invoked. So you need to have an output coming out, and you need to map all the things which are opposed to mapping. Only those things which you are mapping will be mapped. In a simple invoke, if you see from this diagram, in the simple invoke, even if you're not mapping, it will auto map if the same number is same, and even if the number is or if the name in the variable of the pipeline is different, it will still go inside the service and come out as it is, unless that service is doing some modification on it. Okay, so this is the difference between map and transformers. Now, what is the biggest use of this map and the transformer is to initialize variables and is to initialize or map different things. For example, in the service, this is a typical service. If I want to initialize one service, I can one variable I can initialize my variable like this. It will go away. See, I try to initialize it, but if I move it away, it will be gone because I try to initialize it, but it is not there. So if in the start I did not put any value on it, so that's why it vanishes. Now at this point of the input, what I can do of this variable, I actually cannot do anything. The only thing I can do is through drop. Reason is that there might be some places when you will not be looking at any variable at the design time, but at the runtime that variable might be there. Similarly, at the output, you can put any variable or string in the pipeline like this, and here you can actually assign values to it. It is like assignment. It is like initializing your own values, and it will stay like this. Yeah, if you assign a value, it will stay. If you don't assign a value, it will not. Similarly, you can initialize any string list like this. Similarly, you can initialize any document and any object basically like this. And the same thing you can do with the map as well, remember. So map is, so whenever before any service you wanted to do something, generally a map step is the step where you wanted to do all those initializations. You can also do some mapping, you can also do some initialization value. So in this section we learned about map step and we learned about invocation of the services. Now as an assignment, after this one I would recommend you to complete this maths, all of them, invoke them, get the results, see how does it work. It's very simple, and we'll see you in the next phase, next lesson. Thank you very much.